Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Became a Cyber Demon Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The 12th of June 2003, Ramadi, Al-Anbar, Iraq. Naruto was 16 years old. It was strange. Why take them there? While they were in the Philippines, they never got any work done because they were always sent to the hottest places, where they were almost certain to fight. Naruto didn't care, even though he had already been hit a few times. It didn't matter what the other people thought, he would always take a kunai and dig the bullet out. He would then keep going. Everyone was amazed at how he could get back up in just 1 or 2 days after being hit in the arms, legs, or even the chest. A lot of medical facilities around the world were sent to test him because of how quickly and naturally his body healed. They found that bullets that would normally go through a normal man's body couldn't get through the muscle and bone they hit. It didn't matter how bad his wounds looked, they never left a scar. Naruto was given some really bad names because of his skills, personality, and the way he fights. Some of them were Kevlar Kid, Little Jaguar, Baby Joker, and the Human Xerox. There was a lot of talk among the Filipino forces about how he could destroy everything with just one hand. Like in Afghanistan, word got around quickly here. Someone as a kid could jump 10 feet, stick to anything, run on water like a god, break through anything in his way, and make copies of himself. As soon as he got to the Philippines, he was sent on missions by himself that put the rest of his squad in danger. In battle, the terrorist groups he was up against started to fear him because he often attacked when they were alone and nothing strange was going on. Once things looked like they were going well, they were almost certain that everything would go wrong within a day or two. He liked how things were in the Philippines. He was given jobs that were a good fit for him. He was meant to sneak into, steal from, scout, and get rid of the traps that would sometimes be in the jungles. Being there made no sense to him. After working for more than a year to defeat extremist groups in the Philippines, he and his unit were suddenly uprooted before they were even done and told to go back to the Middle East. This made Naruto very angry because the rest of his squad had been in Iraq for 3 months and knew how much he hated deserts and climates that were like deserts. Once more, he was in desert camouflage, wearing the helmet, and sweating like crazy out in the open, where snipers could see him. I hate the damn desert. Naruto yelled as he and his squad walked through the big city on a routine patrol. And will someone turn that goddamn song off? He said this because a nearby Hummer was blasting Journeys. Don't stop believing. I'm sure the civilians are just as pissed off as I am. Wes walked up behind Naruto and said, "Come on kid, no one hates this song." When they were on patrol in the middle of the city, Naruto rolled his eyes and told them to keep an eye out for anything strange on what was marked as his side of the street. It's not the song, it's the fact that the song is playing loud. If I were the insurgents, I'd be putting a damn RPG right in the front seat of that Hummer, he said, jerking his head toward the Hummer behind them. The song then stopped in the middle of the last solo, which made DJ to say, "There you go, Wonderboy. Are you happy now?" Naruto replied, "Very," and then more music began. This time it was Paul Revere by the Beastie Boys. Who the fuck brought all of these CDs? Naruto asked angrily, shaking his head to ignore the music. Someone's grouchy today. Another member of Naruto's team jibed in the background. We just got into a shootout yesterday, Wonderboy. There aren't going to be any enemies near where we are today. If anything happens, it'll go on somewhere deeper in the city, not around the outskirts like where we are. Naruto muttered something irritably, which made DJ laugh. A police officer in the middle of the group walking down the street said, "Kid, we're going to miss you when they take you away. Someone from that unit Foxhound talked to me today about you." Foxhound came to you? He asked, sounding surprised. Why didn't I hear anything about it, and what did they want? This made Naruto forget about how he felt about the heat, the monotony of his current work, and the music playing at the same time. He liked everything about Foxhound because he talked a lot about how he was trained to be like them and how his master had made him the best agent they had ever had. What do you think they wanted, kid? You do the work they specialize in. The field commander himself came knocking for you this morning. I told him you'd be right on time to see him after patrol was over. The field commander was strange. He spoke with a British accent and had fair hair like Naruto. but the man kept up with it better than the blonde kids. He wore an open trench coat and no shirt for some reason, but for a DJ, that was fine. To make fun of his weird clothes in a war zone? Since he was sent to the Philippines, Naruto hadn't had much time to talk about what was going on in the United States. In fact, he hadn't had much time to rest before his unit was sent to Afghanistan. Whenever he called, he asked Catherine what was going on in her life and how her dad was. Because he was fighting in the Philippines for so long, he hadn't seen Miller or Catherine in almost 2 years. To start high school, she was in Los Angeles with her mother, Miller's ex-wife, but she still wanted him to call her and let her know she'd be back during the summer and Christmas break. She had answered the phone for Catherine a few times, so he knew for sure that her mother did not like him at all. But he could handle one person not liking him here. That was better than most of a village. Miller had started teaching Inuit scouts to make money and pass the time. He was getting bored without Naruto or Catherine around. He needed to find another way to stay active since he couldn't keep up with Catherine or beat Naruto's head. Naruto was thinking about home when Wes kept calling his name and telling him to pay attention. Naruto. 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 Stop staring off into space, kid. As soon as Naruto woke up, he asked, What's the matter? I was asking you a question. Wes said with a laugh. So are you going to join up? With Foxhound, I mean. You're always talking about it. Of course I'm joining up, if that's what the guy is here for, then why wouldn't I? Naruto said with a smile before something hit him in the head and he fell to the ground, making a loud ricochet sound. It wasn't often that Naruto didn't have some kind of happy, energetic look on his face. DJ said, ambush, called out as they saw enemy soldiers in uniform wearing brown and black camouflage and balaclava masks over their faces. Some of them were shooting at them from windows on the first floor, but most of them were outside firing from cars. Uzumaki, are you dead? He asked the young blonde he had dragged behind cover as soon as things started to go crazy. No, Naruto said in a low voice as his helmet flew off. The bullet didn't go through his head protection, but it did leave a flesh wound that would heal in an hour or two. Who are these guys? He asked. The uniforms didn't look like anything they were used to seeing on the battlefield. Who picks a fight with the US Army? These guys asked. DJ, doesn't matter who they are, just start shooting, he said as he started firing back with his assault rifle. Naruto gave him a blank look and was about to name dozens of people before they heard the sound of bullets hitting their vehicle cover. While making sure his MP5K was ready for battle, Naruto heard the sound of the enemy's guns. Those sound like AKs, he thought. DJ laughed. Way to go, kid. That narrows down the search of who were fighting to over 80% of the rogue fighting forces in the world. Naruto snapped, not Alaska 47s, as if he didn't know that saying an enemy had an AK-47 didn't mean anything. He had heard that gunfire a lot in the Philippines, so he knew what an AK-47 sounded like. The guns are newer than that. They're not as strong. They're like. He shot one of the enemies who was hiding and killed him quickly, then thought, AKS-74Us. He looked at them with wide eyes and asked, these guys are Russian. What the fuck are Russian soldiers doing here? He took a deep breath and put his hand on DJ's shoulder. I'm going to find out, he said. He mentally made a cage bunshin and told it to stay and help DJ. Take care of my clone and take these. You'll need them more than I will, Naruto told DJ as he dropped his grenades for him to use. Shots were fired at him as he ran from behind their cover to an alley that led him away from the fire. He watched Naruto climb a wall in the alley and take to the roofs, saying, wait kid, get your ass back here. You disobedient little punk. He then turned to Naruto's clone, who was firing on the enemy as ordered, and said, damn it. He grabbed the clone by the front of its gear and said, you're with me. We're hooking up with the others and we're going to call in for reinforcements. It's time to plan this mess. The clone wrapped around DJ while he was on his way to meet up with the rest of the team. The sergeant hoped that they were doing better than Naruto. XXX Naruto got to the 3-story building where most of the gunfire was coming from and said a short prayer in Japanese to whatever god was out there. Naruto needed more focused firepower for what he was about to do. Or maybe he just needed to shock them and hope he was quick enough to finish the job. Yes, the second one looked like it would be better for him. He took off his desert camouflage shirt and ballistic vest. He put the vest back on to protect himself in case he got shot and to be able to use the throwing knives in his special sleeve if he needed to. Naruto took out a flashbang grenade, kissed it, then pulled the pin and threw it into the window below him. 12 shots, he thought as he pulled out his SOCOM pistol to aim more accurately. Right after the flashbang grenade went off, Naruto rolled over the side of the building and grabbed the edge with one hand to swing himself through the open window. This gave Naruto the upper hand over the blinded and deaf people who had been hit. 2 men were quickly killed by Naruto with 3 hits in a room that looked like an office building. There was a block of desks in the middle of the large room, and cubicle walls made a big wall in the middle of the room. He had 9 shots left when he hit another man in the back as he stumbled by a doorway and yelled in Russian. The man fell through the doorway and down a flight of stairs, landing on the floor next to Naruto with 4 other men. Naruto quickly made a cage bunshin that ran up the stairs using its MP5K instead of its SOCOM. The original Naruto chose to use his right arm to fire his pistol and his left hand to hit his remaining enemies with his throwing knives. This is how the clone Naruto ended up killing a group of soldiers who were going upstairs to see what the fuss was about. After shooting 5 soldiers in a row with its 30-round magazine, the clone took out an extra clip to reload. That's when it ended. The first Naruto let out a deep groan of pain and clenched his chest tightly. He felt like someone had just stabbed him through the breastbone. That was a bad move by his clone. Sometimes I swear I miss my old clones. Naruto said to himself as he stood back up, trying to forget about how painful it was to be stabbed in the chest. That guy who stabbed my clone was fast. He thought to himself as he whipped around to the doorway where his clone was killed. SOCOM ready to fire. Naruto hid behind a cubicle wall and kept his eyes on the doorway. Typical man, Naruto heard a woman with a Russian accent say, "He thinks that anyone who is good at fighting must be a man. I'm sorry to let you down." Never taking his eyes off of that doorway, Naruto was ready to shoot anyone who tried to pass through. "That's not why I thought you were a guy just because you're good," he said. "Not a lot of girls I've known that fight would run up to someone and stab them." The girl said in her Russian brogue again, "I don't waste bullets on weaklings. But you're not weak, so I guess I'll be getting serious." Suddenly, a flashbang grenade went off in the room, forcing Naruto to turn around, close his eyes, and hide behind the cubicle wall while holding his ears to keep from going deaf. Naruto remembered from the death of his clone that this girl liked to move when her opponents weren't looking. It was lucky he could remember that because he had to roll out of the way just as a knife went through the wall of his cubicle and into his throat. After that, she ducked back out of Naruto's line of sight as he fired 3 shots that missed. He hadn't been in a one-on-one fight in a while. He hadn't trained for one-on-one fights since he stopped sparring with Master Miller. In fact, he was so used to fighting against other teams as a team that he hoped he wasn't getting rusty. If he was, it would hurt him badly. Still, he had a good look at the person who attacked him when he shot her. Her short silver hair was silver, and her pants were camouflaged in the same way as the men of the unit Naruto was fighting with. She had on full brown gloves, a tight black and white striped shirt, and brown suspenders. She also had what he thought was his gun in the other hand, but hers didn't have a silencer. From across the room, he heard the girl say, "You're a very young soldier." Both were stuck at the moment. Neither dared to stick their head out for fear of having it taken off. With this time, Naruto took out the magazine from his gun and put a new, full one in. "Are you even old enough to vote in your country?" she asked in a mean way. Naruto was sick of hearing people talk about how old he was. "Whatever, I'm 16, you couldn't be much older than me. I'd say 3 years max." He tried to call her out again so he could figure out where she was by the sound of her voice while he did a cage bunshin. "You don't look like any Iraqi insurgent I've ever shot at. Why are you even here?" "Well, I'm 18 just so you know, and don't judge me by your own standards. I've grown up around nothing but combat in my life," the girl laughed. "And insurgents can get mercenary contracts set up as well. They've already paid us for the year." He could almost feel the smirk on her face as she went on to answer his next question. "I knew it was mercenaries. Russian mercenaries," Naruto yelled as he found the girl at the very end of the block of cubicles, across from him. Miller told Naruto about his time as a gun for hire who could go wherever the client wanted. This type of work had become very popular since the 1970s. In fact, that's how he met Big Boss. In 1995 and 1999, The world was held hostage by nuclear weapons during the Outer Heaven Uprising and the Zanzibar land incident, which were both led by mercenaries. It wasn't a surprise that they were fighting here too. Naruto and his copy moved around the block on both sides to try to make a pincer move. He had to duck into a cubicle to avoid getting hit twice by her gun. The girl went to the other side and ran into Naruto's clone just as it turned the corner to chase her. She fired the gun at the clone, sticking the barrel in its shoulder. The clone was knocked out, but not before she took a punch in the cheek that made her fall back until she could get back on her feet. The gunshot wound to his clone hurt so much that it felt like a bullet was stuck in his shoulder. So Naruto wouldn't cry out in pain. He had to bite his left hand hard enough to draw blood. All the while, the girl was amazed at seeing another Naruto that she had killed or seriously hurt disappear right in front of her eyes. She rubbed her hurt cheek and thought, a young soldier who can make copies of himself and fight alongside him as indistinguishable copies. Then she remembered that the description she had been given for this very dangerous US soldier included Naruto's spiked blonde hair and clear whisker marks. You are Naruto Uzumaki, aren't you? Our clients have warned my father's unit about you. The famous and feared, Golden Weed of the West. At that moment, hearing that nickname made Naruto forget about his pain. And who the hell came up with that stupid-ass nickname? He asked with anger in his voice. It was getting old hearing people call him names like Loser. When would someone give him a cool name like the Yellow Flash did in his home village of Konoha? He frowned as he heard the girl laugh again. Even here, girls laughed at him. The Iraqi insurgents came up with it. They call you that because of your hair color, hairstyle, your powers of replication, and the fact that supposedly you're damn hard to kill for good. It gave Naruto a chance to look over all of the cubicle walls as he stood up on the desk and yelled, "Baby, you've got no idea." He saw the Russian girl and fired 5 shots at her, but all of them missed because she ran and dove behind a desk near the door she had come in through. Naruto growled because he couldn't see anything worth shooting at behind the desk. He had to duck back down and sit on the desk against the cubicle wall when she started shooting at him without seeing him. Man, this girl is good, he thought. I can't get close without being easy to catch. I also only have 1 grenade on me because I left the others with DJ. Because they were more important to him. Damn him for trying to look out for his friends. Don't call me, baby, American. The girl yelled at him, sounding angry about being called that. My name is Olga Gerlukovich. Remember it. It will be the last name you ever hear. Naruto replied, whatever. I'm not an American bitch. He was still sitting on the desk against the cubicle wall. Listen to this, he said as he leaned to the side and grabbed the heavy office chair that was nearby. Hear this. He then stood back up and threw the chair across the room behind Olga, who was hiding. He knew it had hit home when he heard a crash and a shriek of pain or shock. He got up from the desk and ran from behind cover just in time to see Olga stand up with a bad bruise on her head and say, "Count the shells, sweetheart." He then fired 4 shots. Because of how Naruto fired his SOCOM, Olga was able to avoid all 4 of them, though one did hit her shoulder. When she fired 3 shots at Naruto, the bullet that hit her shoulder threw off her aim. He was forced into a side roll so that he wouldn't get caught in the sights of her gun. She clenched her teeth and shot Naruto several times, seeing this as her chance to catch the real Naruto and kill him for good. She saw the real difference between Naruto and the copies he had sent at her before. It was the real one who was sneaky and could make quick decisions. The clones would only do what he said. They couldn't attack in any way or come up with any other combat variables. They had all of his skills and looks, but not his mind, so they couldn't use them. They were mostly bodies without souls. At the same time, Naruto got tired of being shot at and rolled into a cubicle, hitting his head on a desk in the process. When the gunfire stopped, Naruto heard footsteps, but then there was silence. But Naruto wasn't stupid. He could see Olga's shadow on the floor on the other side of the cubicle wall that led to the open area. She was leaning against the wall of her cubicle when Naruto rolled his eyes and kicked it as hard as he could. He knocked her off. Olga had to agree that Naruto didn't fight like most people. Who in the world taught someone to fight this way? She asked. He used everything he saw around him that could help him, even the environment itself. She got up from her cubicle, where Naruto had easily found her, only to see him swinging from his own and kicking her. Because he was moving so fast, Olga did a back roll to get out of the way. Naruto tried to stop her with low kicks and stomps, but Olga kept rolling. Eventually, she was on her back on the linoleum floor, pointing her gun at Naruto. 3 shots hit Naruto in the chest, making him look shocked. He disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving behind a bullet-riddled office chair. What in God's name? It's okay, she told herself as she got back on her feet and Naruto fired his gun at her through the wall of the cubicle next to her. It wasn't a good shot, so she dodged and rushed him straight on. She was tired of fighting him and his face in general. He flew around the corner with the same kind of finish in mind. Just as she got to the cubicle wall she had to get past to get to Naruto. They stood there in the open, right in front of each other, and stopped moving. Well, how about that? Naruto asked, a little out of breath. He had the barrel of his gun right against Olga's left eye, and she had her hand on the side of his head, right next to his ear. The two were frozen in place so that neither could move in case the other set off the other and ended the fight in blood. With a heavy heart, Olga said, "Duh. So what do we do now?" She asked Naruto, who smiled and looked a little uneasy. Who could possibly find this funny? She asked herself in her head. Naruto said with a lift in his voice, "That's a good question." His grin turned into a soft smile as he took a good look at Olga now that everyone had stopped running and shooting. Even though she had a tomboy haircut, she was cute. "Hey, you know you're really pretty," he said, changing the subject. "Pig." Naruto laughed and said, "I'm not a pig. I'm 16 years old and the only good conversation I've had with a girl is with one 2 years younger than me who lives thousands of miles away from here. I can't say you're pretty when you have a gun to my head. It might keep me alive here." Catching a bullet with his head wasn't on Naruto's list of things to do before he died because it would probably be the reason he died in the first place. "You could say I'm a handsome devil. I can guarantee that I'd think twice about shooting you if you did," he said. Olga just glared at him and said, "How can someone so skilled be such a... She grunted in irritation and cursed in Russian, not knowing what to say. "I don't even know what to call you. You fight so well but your attitude is so careless." He said, "It doesn't matter how seriously I take things. Being stone cold and tense won't stop someone from wanting to shoot me in the head. Like right now." He looked at the gun that was pointed at him. She told him, "Well, we can't just sit here all day." The 12 men her father sent with her came to this building with her. Naruto killed all of them in a flash. The close-range attack squad outside could help her, but they were already in a firefight with US soldiers that they were supposed to be fighting. One American soldier went straight to the center of the ambush and stopped the most dangerous part of the attack. Her father's men were going to leave soon, so she had to get out before they did. If they did, she would probably be left behind. Naruto laughed and licked his lips. God, he hated how dry the desert was. "Well, to be honest, I kind of lost track of how many times I fired at you over the wall during our little shootout just now. I think you did too when you were shooting me in the open and when you were running away from my kicks." She did so well to avoid him for so long. He thought most people wouldn't get that fast. She was just as fast as Master Miller, but he thought that maybe being able to dodge bullets for a living made you faster in some way. She told him, "So, to get to the point. Neither you nor I know how many bullets we have," he said. As she looked at him with her eyes open, he said, "One of us could be holding a gun with an empty clip. I think you get the idea." She yelled at him, "You're crazy." Naruto didn't care that she thought he was crazy. He kept talking, "On the count of 3, we both fire our guns. Whoever walks away walks away." She shook her finger on the trigger and took a nervous breath in. "And if neither of us walks away?" Naruto sighed and said, "If you kill me, at least I'll be able to picture something nice when you smash it all over the floor. Are you ready?" His smile came back, and he asked, "Help me count." 1. 2, Olga said, shaking Naruto's head very hard with the gun. They both yelled at the same time, 3, click. Aja and Naruto both stood still after pulling the triggers on their guns but not firing anything. One of them looked the other in the eyes for a moment before slowly moving away. When Olga put her gun away and pulled out a knife, Naruto did the same and pulled out one of his kunai. They both cautiously moved away from each other. Because the slide on Naruto's gun was back, he knew there were no more bullets inside. He looked down at it and fought back a quiver in his eyebrow. He looked up and saw that Olga had also found the same problem with her gun. "Wow," he thought. "Oh, this is embarrassing." Olga then raised one hand to show that she wasn't going to attack, and Naruto did the same. He flipped his kunai so that he was holding it by the blade, and she did the same with hers. He smiled at her as if they were both going to leave the fight. He thought that until she smiled and pushed a button on the knife's handle, which sent a bullet through the bottom of the knife at him. Naruto moved his weapon arm in front of him as if he could block the bullet with the kunai in his hand. It looked like the bullet was moving slowly toward him. But it wasn't meant to be. The shot went right through Naruto's vest and into his chest. He stepped forward, closing the small gap between them, and let go with one slash of his kunai. It was almost like a reflex. Naruto's kunai cut Olga across the bridge of her nose, down her cheek, and stopping on the left side of her mouth. She screamed in pain. "You jerk!" she yelled as she fell back, tasting her own blood and thankful that he didn't get either of her eyes. Naruto spat back, "UB*TCH, and held his chest tight. The bullet and the blood running down his body were both easy for him to feel. Poor guy, he should have known better than to let a pretty face screw him over. To be fair, he didn't even know those kinds of weapons existed. "Okay, I'm not dead, you're not dead. You shot me. I probably scarred you for life. Can we just call it even and be done with it already?" In both a literal and figurative sense, Olga saw nothing but redness. "I'll kill you," she yelled as she charged him with her knife, intending to cut him open. Naruto held his kunai in his usual reverse grip so that he could use it in different ways. When he tried to stab her, she got faster and more careless, making it hard for him to find a good spot. He could only take a step back and wait. Fighting the way she was meant, she would make a mistake at some point. Oh, he thought that until Olga tried to stab him once and her knife got close enough to hit his belt, more specifically the grenade on it, and even more specifically the pin of the grenade on it. While pulling the pin out, she threw the grenade away. The pinless grenade fell to the office floor, and they both gasped in shock. After looking at each other for a split second, Naruto and Olga both knew what to do and dove. They jumped out of the open windows on their side just in time to be blown farther away from the building as they flew off the third floor. After Olga's lighter body flew across the street, it hit the roof of a car and slightly caved it in with its weight. It did not go well for Naruto. He also flew across the street, but unlike Olga, his body hit the ground hard and rolled helplessly until it hit an iron gate on the other side of the street. This gate had points sticking out of the bottom, which is how Naruto ended up stabbing himself in the back with these iron points. He fell to the ground lifeless as his MP5K flew off his back and through the gate's bars, away from him. Olivia was the first one to move. She held her ribs as she rolled off the roof of the car she had landed on. She thought she had hurt more than a few because she had to walk so carefully. She looked over at Naruto and saw that blood was pooling under him where he was sitting. She also made notes of the points on the fence that he was leaning against. She was about to smirk because she thought she had won when she saw his arms move as he slowly pushed himself off the points that had stuck him. He fell face first to the dusty ground. How is he still alive? She was shocked when she saw him smirk at her and lift his head. Blood was running from his lips. They were still smiling, which made her want to kill him, but she lost her knife in the explosion and her gun was empty. As they fought, she left her pack with most of her magazines inside the building. During the battle, she used all of the ones she had on her. Naruto got up with the help of a nearby car and began walking slowly toward her. "I'm not that easy to kill," he said, spitting blood on the ground. What was she going to do? He still had the knife on him, so if she tried to fight him with her hands, he would kill her. That blue ball of light in his other hand, which had formed out of nothing, didn't look very inviting either. He was hurt so badly, though, that leaving him like that would hurt her pride. As Olga listened to more people yelling Naruto's name, she said, "You're lucky, Uzumaki. You win today." And then she left the area quickly to avoid being caught. She would meet up with the rest of the Gurlukovich mercenaries who were stationed at a safe house in town if she could get there. The sarcastic answer was, "Yeah. Real lucky, come back and try me again anytime, beautiful." "Datbeo," Naruto said as he stood there and watched her leave. He couldn't even chase her or aim the kunai in his hand straight. He didn't really mean what he said with Rasengan because he wasn't sure he could raise either arm high enough to do anything after getting shot in the chest. After taking a 30-foot fall to the hard ground and getting hit by pieces of the grenade, the bullet in his chest, and the puncture wounds in his torso, he wasn't even in good enough shape to throw a frisbee, let alone chase down an enemy. When Naruto saw familiar camouflage, he put his hand up like a thumbs up and then slid down against the car to show the soldiers how badly he was hurt. In the distance, Naruto saw a blurry figure rush over to him and say, "Kid? Don't worry kid, you're going home. Someone get the kid some help." That was the last thing Naruto heard before his vision went dark. XXX Naruto was put in a helicopter while a man with long blonde hair and an open coat with nothing underneath watched and shook his head. And to think I was about to ask the boy if he wanted to join Foxhound with me today. A shame. His abilities would have been very useful to us. His strength, speed, agility, skill a euro. Everything he could do was confirmed by the men here who have seen it for themselves. He would have fit right in, he said to the man standing next to him. "What do you think, Ocelot?" A man next to him looked exactly like a cowboy from a spaghetti western. The hair on his head was long and gray, and it was starting to fall out. His duster, gloves, clothes, boots, spurs, and even the gun he held in his hand a euro. A Colt single-action army revolver a euro. All screamed, "Cowboy. Don't write off the kid just because he has a few bumps and bruises, boss. Wounds heal. I wouldn't let him go so easily. He would still be useful, especially to them," he said with disgust as he finished. "What makes you think that's not where he's going at this very moment?" asked the man Ocelot called, "Boss," in a British accent. He gave a sigh. He's the only soldier that was wounded badly enough here today to be medevaced out of here. He's definitely gone for good. Out of my hands. He then started to leave. "Oh, and don't call me, boss, Ocelot. At least not yet a euro, I haven't earned that title yet. Use my code name." Following behind, Ocelot, who looked like a cowboy, let out a small laugh and said, "Whatever you say, Liquid." With their main reason for being in Iraq no longer valid, the two Foxhound members left the battlefield. XXX he opened his eyes somewhere, not in a medical tent or even in a medical building. He was outside, lying in shallow water and staring up at a smoky sky. Trees that were on fire were all around him. Fuck. He was back there. He couldn't have died. He didn't think he was going to die. Even though he hadn't been hurt that badly in almost 2 years of fighting, he didn't think his life was in great danger. He still hadn't been hurt as badly as he was in his fight with Sasuke, which was the worst damage he had ever taken all at once. It took Naruto a moment to believe what he was saying when he sat up and saw the same ghostly man he had seen the last time he was in this world. "Hey, Saro," Naruto said in a normal way. If he was already dead, there was no reason to piss off the manager. The man smiled back, as if he knew what would happen. "Hello, little Naruto. I've been watching you. But you're not so little anymore, are you?" With a shrug, Naruto sat back in the shallow water and said, "I know I didn't die. I know what it's like to almost die because I almost died twice. That wasn't it." The Saro told Naruto, "You are neither dead nor dying like the last time we met in person." She seemed amused that the young man didn't know why he was there. "Now that you have had a real taste of battle, now that your hands are stained with blood, how do you feel about war? About yourself?" I thought about that question for a moment. He had actually been in full-scale battles and killed people. He was scared to death and felt his heart jump out of his chest. He had seen other people do the same thing. Like Olga had just told him, he tried to beat his opponents and leave them alive as much as possible. But that way of thinking will get you hurt or killed, so he said, "Well, I don't know. I feel bad when I sit back and think about it. I killed people, how am I supposed to feel? Happy. But it was either them or me most of the time. It's hard to take people alive when they're shooting at you from 50 yards away." When he could, Naruto locked up people. He was probably the kindest member of his squad in the Philippines. When he had the chance to get close enough to kill an enemy, he did so. In fact, Olga was the first person he had ever fought close up that he couldn't easily knock out, even if she had a gun or knife on her. He held the iron gate holes in his back and laughed meanly. "I guess if I'm going to keep fighting the way I do, I'd better be ready to get hurt a lot more often, huh?" He then looked up at the Saro and said, "When I have the choice, I won't kill anyone. I'm better than that." He pointed his thumb up to the metal plate on his headband and said, "I won't ever take the easy way out. I don't back down." "That's a pretty big claim," Naruto said. "Make sure you don't a euro, and I don't want you to have to see me again, so don't go dying in battle." He raised his hand like he did when he sent Naruto to that world in the first place, remembering how it felt when the sorrow stopped Naruto's heart when he touched him on the shoulder. "I will still be watching you. Don't disappoint me." Instead of grabbing Naruto's shoulder, he flicked him in the forehead, and Naruto saw black again. XXX, unknown place, late summer or early fall 2003. Naruto is 16 years old. He could not see and his mind was racing when he became aware of himself again. He could almost make out words, though. A Euro discovering the origin of the subject's unique abilities and traits has been a slow process. Despite finding that the healing, the reinforced physical condition that allows him to survive horrible combat conditions, and the stronger physical frame that makes him seem structurally denser than normal people are all genetic features, we have been unable to discover the genes that allow his ability to form doppelgangers, stick to surfaces, or channel a kinetic source of energy for exterior purposes. When Naruto woke up, he found himself on a lab table that was literally bolted down. He quickly wished he had never woken up. At first, it seemed odd that he wasn't in any pain. Then, as he woke up, he heard the voice of an older woman who spoke in a garbled way. "The subject is awakening. The sedatives have worn off prematurely once again, another testament to his abnormal and incredible physiology." Oh. That made sense. The sedatives were making him fight them. That made sense. Why the hell was he taking drugs to make him sleepy? It felt like he was only awake for a short time. He was hurt in the battle with the Gurlukovich mercenaries. If he was in a coma, wouldn't sedatives keep him from ever waking up? Unless that was the point. Was that person who just spoke calling him a subject? Like a test subject? It was then that Naruto woke up and saw a woman in a lab coat with red hair that had gray streaks in it. The age was clear on her face, and her eyes were very cold. She looked at him as if he were not human, like he was only good for testing purposes. He had seen eyes like that before. He had seen Orochimaru look at him in a similar way the few times he had been close to the man, but he couldn't do anything about this woman's look. "Who are you? What do you want? Where am I?" Naruto asked in a rough voice. He was naked and his throat was very dry. In his current state, that second one was not a good sign. After some thought, the woman said, "Well, I guess I can tell you that." While she walked toward a table with medical tools on it, Naruto realized he was in a lab. He couldn't move because he was in a lab. That made him realize right away that today would not be his day. When the woman took out a syringe and filled it with something, she said, "My name is Dr. Clark." He didn't feel very safe even though he was with a doctor. This woman made him think of the strange doctors who were in charge of his physical tests when he first joined the army. Because she looked at every part of him so closely, it made him think of that exact moment. It seemed like they didn't see him for who he was, or even for the body he had, but for what they could use later. As if he were some kind of dispenser, meant to be used for whatever good things he had inside. His inability to move was making him feel bad, and he could tell that the sedatives weren't working because he could feel where he was stuck to the table and it didn't really tickle. "You didn't answer my other questions," he said, trying to keep his voice from sounding desperate. He knew things were going badly for him. When Dr. Clark reached out and grabbed Naruto's face to study his features, she said, "Where you are doesn't matter. You're supposed to be of Japanese descent." "I don't see it," she said, sounding upset. He bared his teeth at her and cursed in Japanese. He thought he saw a smile on her lips behind her surgical mask. "That's much better. Now let me tell you what I want. I've already taken your blood samples after seeing how far your amazing healing power could go. Also, feel thankful that you weren't awake for those experiments. But I'm in luck because this one needs you to be awake." Thought about the syringe in her hand as it got closer to his throat and asked, "Experiments?" Dr. Clark said, "Yes," as if she were talking about the weather. "I'm going to see if your body can actually dull the senses of pain by purposely provoking the pain receptors in your brain and your nerve endings. It's to be used in my gene study research. We've been watching you for a while and your soldier genes are amazing. We've never seen anything like them before. Your natural abilities mixed with those of Big Boss or any other great soldier would be a terrifying combination. I can't wait to add to my research, but I can't until I figure out how to copy your unique combat skills, like your replication." She then blinked and laughed. "Oh, I guess I was rambling again. Here we go." She injected the needle directly into Naruto's neck, making him stop moving. Naruto growled, "What kind of doctor are you? as the needle came out of his throat. "I've been doing this for decades. But why aren't you?" Dr. Clark raised an eyebrow and said, "The best." At that moment, Naruto let out a terrible scream of pain. "Oh, there it is. I thought the sedatives were blocking the pain for a second," she said to herself, as if Naruto's constant yells didn't bother her. "The pain will not go away until you lose consciousness, I'm afraid. Though it seems that you have the same tendency for pain as everyone else." Naruto screamed at the top of his lungs, "You sadistic bitch. You can't do this to people. This is illegal." He couldn't move an inch, even though it felt like a blade was running through his whole body. Dr. Clark smirked as she walked out of the room and said, "Oh dear. The law? The laws are in the hands of the Patriots. You don't have any rights here." She then said, "I need to check something with my main guinea pig, his reaction to being injected with your healing genes. I don't need to be here for all of this screaming. I'll just watch the videotape of your reaction to the serum and add to my information from that. Maybe with the sound off. You're very noisy." Naruto screamed, "Go fuck yourself with a machete," as Dr. Clark left the room and closed the iron automatic door behind her, leaving him alone. His mind couldn't be working this way. He wasn't hurt and in this much pain. It was just pain. He was stuck and couldn't get it out of his system. In all his years, he had never felt this helpless. His ears picked up her rude words from outside. Such a vulgar little soldier boy. He didn't care what she said in response. He couldn't get rid of this feeling under her skin by getting closer to her. "Who is this jerk?" I thought to myself as Naruto continued to shake in pain. Every time he felt pain, his mind went back to seeing himself being examined by groups of doctors over and over again. He always remembered seeing those eyes and thought, has she been watching me the whole time? How did she get to me, though? I was there, I heard and saw him? How in the world did they catch me? This was similar to what his last ninja teacher, Jiraiya, told him about the man Orochimaru doing to other people. The woman who worked for Dr. Clark had the same look in her eyes. What the heck was he doing? Where could he be that someone would let something like this happen to him? He was a soldier in the army, and his own squad had seen him before he woke up here. Someone needed to tell them where he was. Somebody had to know that he wasn't in any place. Then he realized that besides his unit, which was probably still in Iraq, only 2 people knew him well enough to care that he was missing. If he was thinking straight, they wouldn't have been told that he had been hurt in battle because they would have wanted to hear from him. He knew that no one would be after him no matter where he was. He knew about the tests, experiments, and other things like that because Miller had told him about them in training. Someone in the US government with enough power to get him could have done it. He didn't get it. Because he was so loud, his screams could be heard all over the room and probably even in the hall outside. Neither of his arms nor legs would move, so there was nothing he could do. He didn't know how long he yelled for, maybe minutes or hours, but as he bit down on his lip, drawing blood easily with his sharp teeth, he became more angry and desperate. "I need to leave. I have to leave this place." He felt an orange aura around him at first, but it quickly turned red and bubbly as it formed the shape of a one-tailed fox around him. "I'm not going to die here. I'm not being tested on by anyone. I don't belong to anyone." He began pulling his arms free of the bolts in a horrible way. "Hurtful? Yes, but do you really care about causing what might be seen as less pain to try to ease the pain you're already feeling when your whole body is hurting?" However, the thick screws that held him to the table wouldn't budge. Naruto became more angry and needed to use more power. Naruto started to change quickly in how he looked. His eyes changed from blue to blood red, his whisker marks got darker and deeper, and his nails grew longer until they were claws. He started to writhe and growl angrily, not accepting that he was being caught for a moment. As a group of armed soldiers walked into the room, the bolts that were stuck in his arms and legs started to move and creak. The soldiers looked at the living demon and asked, "What the hell?" One of the soldiers started to choke on the air in the room, which felt like it was stinging his throat and whole body. It looked like Naruto was the source of the pain. "You can't kill the subject. He's important to the continuation of Dr. Clark's research," they told him as he aimed his gun at the demon-possessed teen boy. He should have let him shoot. If they were lucky, they could have hit him in the eye and killed him. He finally got free and fell to the ground, snarling at the men in front of him while he squatted on all fours like a beast. Switch to non-lethal methods. Detain the subject. The subject did not reciprocate the nonviolent feeling. Instead, Naruto's 3 chakra-based tails lashed out and knocked 2 of the 4 men in the room off their feet while holding on to 2 others. Naruto then pushed a pair of hands through the throats of the captured men as if his claws were made of iron. In the hall, the 2 men who were lying on the ground against the wall where Naruto hit them picked up their automatic weapons and aimed. But before they could do anything, 2 of Naruto's red chakra tails stabbed them in the chest, which caused the wall behind them to crack. While walking out into the hall, Naruto vaguely, with what little understanding and rational thought he still had, noticed that a loud siren was going off throughout the whole building where he was. As he watched soldiers charge down the hall at him, all he could think about was killing the Dr. Clark jerk. It was like that was all that drove him. The loud roar that Naruto let out sent a shockwave through the air that hit the soldiers coming at him and tore through the walls. Naruto then ran through the halls, looking for a way out or someone to block his path so he could kill them too. There are 2 things that would make Naruto happy: either getting out or running into the person who did this to him. Naruto turned his head around when he heard more boots hitting the ground and someone speaking. Is it one of Dr. Clark's damn gene therapy experiments, the one that looks like a damn robot ninja? She's been injecting her main subject with all kinds of new stuff these days. No, I think that one got away. His drugs ran out, and the jerk gave him a cybernetic exoskeleton on top of that. Forget about her. She's dead anyway, said another soldier from the same spot. Dr. Clark was really great. He hoped it hurt her as much as it hurt him. While that was going on, Naruto found his new targets. The source of the messed up experiment's new genes broke out too. He shouldn't be that. Whoa, he heard a voice say in shock as he kept pressing down on them. Just a little farther away, close enough now. What kind of monster did all of this? A scared voice asked. Then Naruto saw people in uniforms, but they didn't see him coming at all. Okay. Naruto let out a loud roar, and when they turned to face him, he saw fear in their eyes. It made me feel drunk. He could do this with even more of the Kyuubi's power, right? He was scared that he was so mean, but he didn't care at the moment. They caught him. He was a part of their stupid tests. The voice in his head kept telling him that they knew this was going to happen. As he began to badly hurt them, he laughed at their desperate attempts to hold on to their weapons. This kind of weapon wasn't needed by him. His hands were his weapons. XXX. The mindscape of Naruto. It kept going on and on. His strange chakra kept cutting through the enemy, and most of the time, they couldn't even aim because they were too scared of him. After killing dozens of stupid people who tried to stop him, he got out of the base and ran into the woods. It was like a drug to Naruto, giving him a strong desire to kill and more power. It was the cause of his power overload and bad mood. Naruto learned about all the powerful things in the world while it sat and waited in his body. This knowledge would have made most shinobi look bad. Naruto learned what these weapons could do by using them during this time. The technology that people in this world used made up for their lack of skills, even though they were mostly weak physically. You could bring down even the all-powerful Kyuubi no Yoko. Maybe it would be tied to the will of these humans, like it was in its original world. It just didn't know. It would be safe until it could be freed as long as this stupid human that it was locked up inside could fight. That thing would have found a way to get rid of all of the world's powerful weapons by that point. It was only the shinobi of the elemental nations who could stop this world. Without its weapons, no one or thing could. It could not be stopped by anything. It was a threat that this strange group could go against the US government and use Naruto for experiments right in front of them. It was possible that they already had the power to take it over if they had that much power. It also had to be thrown away. The Kyuubi only had to give Naruto food and water until the right time came along. He could feel the killing going on outside, and the voice in his head told him, "Yes, Naruto. I am the only weapon you need. And in this world with its terrible nuclear arms and weapons of mass destruction, you do need me." From behind prison bars, a vulpine grin could be seen saying, "Deep down you know that you do." XXX. Forest on the border between the US and Canada. There was a person on top of a cliff wearing a sleek, cybernetic exoskeleton suit that covered their whole body. This suit covered the parts of the body that were made of machines instead of real human parts. When the front of the helmet was opened, a very human-looking male face with blonde or white hair was seen. They were being held captive, and he looked down at the destruction. What kind of weapon could have done something like this? He asked in a stern voice. With his better eyesight, the cybernetic man saw the red outline of a fox with 3 tails stalking away from the lab where they were both trapped. He saw the fox walking shakily through the forest until the red outline disappeared and the young man it had come from fell face first to the ground. He thought what he was about to do was kind of funny, since he had no reason to help the man other than the fact that he had obviously also been a subject of Dr. Clark's experiments. He was happy when he got away and killed that woman. The figure focused on Naruto and couldn't see any signs of life near or around him. It laughed in a gravelly way and said, "It's some kind of cosmic Jakaya Euro. A gray fox, like me helping out this strange red fox." That was clearly what kept the main force's attention while he killed Dr. Clark and sneaked out of the base without being seen. A boy a third of his age had wiped out the base and killed all of those men. He fought almost the same way he did in 1970, but this boy killed with hot anger and rage instead of cold efficiency. After noticing how young Naruto looked and remembering his own time as a child soldier, he said, "I'll give you the same chance to keep living that Big Boss gave me, little fox. Maybe you can find your own reason to keep fighting the way I did." He then used stealth camouflage to disappear and decided to go find Naruto and bring him back to civilization before going back to his own tasks. He had to get him out of there before the cleanup crew got there to fix what they had broken. Naruto had no idea what was going on. In the morning, he woke up somewhere in the woods and found himself moving. He could see trees moving past him, but he never figured out who was taking him and couldn't even stay awake long enough to fight back. It took a lot of the Kyuubi's chakra to use so much of it. He had never felt so strong before. He had no idea how much he could handle. After that, he saw nothing for the longest time since he woke up in the lab. The mindscape of Naruto. When Naruto woke up, half of his face was in shallow water. He picked himself up and looked around at his sewer-like setting with a sneer on his face because he hadn't been here in a long time. At first, he thought he was back in the Sorrow's realm, which made him groan. He knew where he was at all times. Naruto got up, didn't care that water was dripping off of him, and walked over to a huge set of bars. Behind them were a pair of very scary, large, blood-red eyes staring at him. "It's about time you acknowledged me, boy," he said. The Kyuubi caught Naruto's attention. "What happened back in that lab? I've never taken that much chakra before," he asked. It felt. He then looked at his hands as if they weren't his own. Incredible. The Kyuubi tried to finish for him, hoping that Naruto would be easier to control after feeling so much power flow through him. It must have made him happy. They had done him so much harm, but he easily beat them. The Kyuubi thought Naruto would say something else, but he said, "Horrible." The look on his face showed how disgusted he was with what he had done. "I tore those men apart. I fought like an animal. I was a monster." He then turned to face the Kyuubi and glared, "I was like you." The Kyuubi growled angrily at Naruto for saying that as if it were an insult. "Watch your tongue, boy. Is it really so wrong to want to be like me here? You're supposed to kill as many enemies as you can. Isn't that what soldiers in this world are supposed to do?" The angry Naruto said, "No, it isn't." He never thought that his only job was to kill people. "It's about completing the mission. It's not just about killing others," he told them. "Do you even have any idea how many other humans you've killed since you started your little career?" The Kyuubi had asked in anger. "It really makes me proud to have you as my container, to be honest. I thought you were spineless, but in this world you've killed far more people than I had expected you to in your other one. These people, these conditions, and these weapons bring out the absolute worst in you." The Kyuubi saw Naruto's face turn angry and was happy to cut him off in the middle of his rant. "By my estimate, you have killed between 85 and 100 humans. The least of them you killed in that desert place, Afghanistan. You killed the most in the Philippines." Naruto had no idea how many there were. When he thought about it more, he had only been keeping track of the people he had killed himself. Naruto had indirectly killed a lot of people, even when he wasn't the one who shot them. His clones weren't shooting blanks, and they could still aim and shoot even though they couldn't make their own decisions or even have free will. How many people did they kill? Naruto had marked strongholds in the jungle as targets for airstrikes, and he had to find and check them out himself. It was clear that he had killed at least that many. The Kyuubi might have been wrong about that number, too. He could have killed more. When he got out of that lab, he felt like he had killed a lot of people. "Do you see now? The Kyuubi asked in a harsh tone. You say these things, that you don't like to kill, but you love your job. You like the fighting, the panic of battle, the adrenaline of putting your life on the line. You crave it. Naruto roared back, I don't have to enjoy killing to enjoy my job. He didn't want to bend to the demon's words. I like all of those things, but the killing is bittersweet. It's either me or them. I'm not like you. I don't kill just because someone is in my way. As Naruto and the demon stared each other down, there was silence in the sewer like representation of his mind. What could Naruto have been scared of? Dying. He had been killed before. That wasn't it, though. It wouldn't be enough for Naruto to just die for him to change his mind. Kyuubi broke the silence between them after a while. You need me. Sure, you may be able to handle a fool with a gun, but what happens when it's not just that? He saw Naruto look long and hard. Or do you honestly believe that all by your lonesome you can defeat a tank? Or an attack helicopter? Or do you believe that you can survive an airstrike going for scorched earth? Don't be a fool. There are things in this world that would give even me pause. To which Naruto replied, then you're the one who needs me. He knew he had hit the right button to take the conversation into deeper waters when he said, you're right, I probably can't survive any of those things on my own. But that means neither can you since you're stuck inside of me. And I like the little setup you and I had when I first came here. He walked up to the cage and smiled. You know the one? The one where you fucking owed me rent. So I'll just take what I need when I need it from you, and you'll gladly give it to me. I probably won't do that again after the last time, by the way. What did you just say? The Kyuubi asked in a low, sharp voice, as if he were daring Naruto to say it again and threatening to give the right answer the next time. No, Naruto didn't think so. You don't get it. You don't get to bargain. Do you really think I'm okay with what your chakra made me do back there? I won't just use it that way for no reason. The Kyuubi tried to get Naruto to still side with him by asking, what is your problem? The weak person in question could not say no to such power. Were you not paying attention to just what you're capable of with my chakra running through you? Naruto said with anger, I was paying attention, and it makes me sick to think about what I did back there. I didn't just kill them because I had to. I could have gotten away, but I ended up killing all of them. The Kyuubi was really getting annoyed by Naruto at this point. What the heck was this jerk talking about? Killing because he had to. So what would you have done? Just let the people who held you hostage live because you didn't have to kill them. Boo-hoo? It asked in its cutest baby voice. Naruto yelled, yes. That fox was so annoying. He wished he was strong enough to walk into that cage and punch it in the nose. Just because someone is your enemy doesn't mean they have to die. If I killed just because it felt good, then that wouldn't make me any different from a murderer. Are you some kind of hero? Naruto asked. He was just as stupid as the Kyuubi remembered. Did that fool really think he could make it through life the way he was if he didn't like killing? Would he have been able to stay alive as a ninja if he thought that way? Naruto asked in a low voice, is it really so wrong to want to be? His voice was much calmer and less angry than it had been for a few minutes. Is it so wrong to care about fighting for no reason? In Konoha, I would have been fighting to protect my friend Sayuro. To become Hokage. I've been a soldier for 2 years and I still haven't found the reason I fight in this world. I don't have a purpose, but this is all I'm good at. He looked up at the huge Kyuubi and said, if I can't find the real reason I'm fighting for, then I guess I'm just a killer after all. As Naruto turned and walked away, the Kyuubi spoke up. Where are you going? Take my power. Crush your enemies. Do you really think that things are over? That the people who took you will just let you get away? They will come for you again. They will kill that girl and the old man who took you in. If they found you, what makes you think they won't find them too? This goes much deeper than you could ever understand, human. Things are not what they seem in this world. Do not ignore me. But Naruto was already gone, so the Kyuubi could only roar in anger at missing the chance to control Naruto. But it wasn't over yet. The Kyuubi would get him in the end. It had to. It was impossible for that hairless ape to be free in this world, where someone could kill him and he would never see them. He had to stay inside him at all times. XXX, Portland, Oregon, October 10, 2003. Naruto is 17 years old. There was only one girl in the room with Naruto. She had curly blonde hair in a ponytail and bright green eyes that didn't look very bright right now. She wore a dark purple skirt and a black leather jacket that she kept zipped up. A necklace with a green gem that looked expensive was on her outfit. At the moment, she had her strong hand on Naruto's inside. Catherine said softly, "Happy birthday, big bro," as she sat next to Naruto's bed in the hospital room. Naruto was hurt in Iraq, flown back to the US, and is now in a hospital in Oregon, she and Miller were told. It was after she learned he was in a coma that she talked her mother into letting her miss some school to go see him. The thing was, he was fully healed, breathing on his own, and there were no obvious health issues with him. She had just been told about it the other day. He had written and called her to tell her about some of his injuries. Based on what she read and heard, he should be in terrible shape right now. If he had been hurt so badly that he had to be sent home, he was fine. There was nothing they told her about when he was hurt or what was done to him. His records about the matter seemed to have been erased, which couldn't be true. The military would have kept some kind of record of what happened to him, right? She was at least glad he was still alive. Her first year of high school didn't take her mind off of how much she missed him. In a voice that sounded like he could hear her, Catherine told Naruto, "It's been really boring without you around, you know." She wanted him to know that she was present. "Mom tells me all the time in LA to be careful when I go around. Laughs, but then I just tell her if anything happens to me that you would be on the first return trip back to the US and you'd crack heads until the problem was solved at Euro, you bonehead." He looked calm, and he really needed a haircut. At this point, it was falling past his shoulders in its usual spiky, curly way. After that, she quickly turned away as she looked at the door. Even though they didn't know what was watching, she felt like she did. She had been stressed for 2 days in a row. "So how is he?" her dad asked out of the blue, which surprised her. Catherine watched as Miller walked in and sat down on the other side of his bed, across from her. "I haven't seen the kid stay down for more than a day, except when I was teaching him how to climb a mountain and he almost fell off," she said. Catherine thought back to the first winter they had Naruto with them and said, "I could have killed you for that, Dad. I remember telling you not to let him do that because he was just a kid, barely older than me. I used to say that a lot." She then looked at the sleeping soldier and said, "I still feel that way." Without putting on his glasses, Miller rubbed his eyes and said, "The kid will be fine in no time. He'll wake up soon and be hungry enough to eat everything this hospital gives him. When he's done, he'll probably still beg you or me for some ramen." Catherine let out a small giggle. "I give it to him too. It's supposed to be his birthday today. You know he's 17, right? He should be in high school with me, not fighting some war." "That's your opinion, Kitty a Euro." Catherine and Miller were both shocked when they heard that weak voice. They both turned to look at Naruto, who didn't seem to have moved at all until he opened his mouth to speak again. "I'd know that voice anywhere. And only one person would keep complaining about me not being in high school," he said. "Naruto. You're awake. Are you okay?" Catherine asked happily as Miller got up to get him something to drink. His eyes slowly opened, and he had to squint for a while because the room was lit by fluorescent lights. "I'll be fine. I'm kind of stiff, but I'll get over it soon enough," he said. He then felt someone put a small cup to his mouth, and he took a few sips of water. "Thanks." Catherine gave Miller the cup back and sat down next to Naruto, pulling closer to his bed. "What the hell happened to you, Naruto? They said you were hurt in Iraq, but no one told me how. I don't even think your dad knew." That caught Naruto's attention, but the light quickly made his eyes go blank again. "They said he was hurt and found in Iraq." Naruto may not have been fully awake during his Kyuubi episode, but he knew what Iraq looked like, and he was definitely not in Iraq before he passed out. It was clear that he passed out in the woods because they were very deep. When he woke up, he didn't feel like he had just been in a coma like the last time. Instead, he felt like he had been sleeping for a while. Then he remembered what the Kyuubi had said to him while they were talking. Things were not what they seemed to be. That the people who took him were powerful enough to hide him from the army and make sure no one asked questions. His closest friends and family didn't even know he was missing until he came back. Catherine didn't know anything else besides what she was told, as shown by her interested face. He seemed suspicious, and Miller did too. He must have thought something was wrong. What did he mean to say? Didn't he just need to say, "Yes, I did get hurt in Iraq. Months ago. Someone did experiments on me and looked at my genes for a few months now. It's okay, though, I got out and killed everyone there before finding my way here." It was true what the Kyuubi said in other places. He was in front of his alert unit in the middle of a war zone. If these people could easily get to him, they could easily get to a high school girl aged 14 to 15 or her famous retired soldier father who lives alone in the middle of Alaska right now. They didn't need to know. It wasn't about them. Naruto smiled weakly and tried to say something right away. Well, I didn't get hurt by insurgents or anything. They hired some roaming mercenaries that were way better than what we were used to. I got hurt taking out a bunch of them before they could pin down my squad and a few others. They weren't even native to the region. Miller seemed to agree with this excuse with his own explanation. Ah, I see. It reminds me of back when I was a mercenary myself. Telling the public about a group of mercenaries hired to fight against the US would cause some serious problems, especially if they weren't from Iraq where the fight took place. An army without borders is a rather dangerous thing. Naruto smiled and nodded, pleased that they believed his ridiculous explanation, which was well thought out as Miller filled in the blanks. Then Catherine hugged him tightly and said, "Don't ever get hurt again. I was scared to death when I found out what happened to you." Naruto felt terrible again as tears started to come through his hospital robe. He would not have had any of these things happen to him if he hadn't hurt himself in the first place. Once more, he was to blame for making his favorite girl cry. He could only pat her on the back and tell her not to worry about him. Don't worry about me. Some Russian chick with a kick-ass knife can't kill me. I'm better than that. Just stop crying, okay? I'm not dead. He looked over at Miller for help, but the man backed away with his hands crossed, not sure what to do. As Naruto took a seat, Catherine pulled away with tears in her eyes as she tried to stop. I'm sorry, I already told you that I wouldn't know what to do if you died. I have nightmares about you getting hurt all the time, she said. Nairo made a face frown. Did she really care that much that he was out fighting? He then saw the necklace she was wearing around her neck, even under her leather jacket, and said, "You took good care of that necklace. I'm glad you still have it." When Catherine looked down at the necklace around her neck, she said, "Of course I took care of it. I always wear this." She was proud of the gift Naruto had given her years before. "Do you want it back?" He slowly sat up in his bed and smiled at her. "Nah, you wear it better than I do," he said, getting a soft, embarrassed smile from her. "I don't feel like taking it back just yet. I want you to keep it until you graduate." "Okay. Then I'll take it back. Maybe." He was glad that his change of subject from his battle wounds had stopped Catherine from crying. He loved being sad, especially when he was the one who made someone cry. Miller looked at Naruto with a hard look in his eyes and asked, "Are you coming home?" Kate's face lit up when she thought about Naruto going back to Alaska. He might even be able to move to Los Angeles with her while she finishes school. Miller did ask Naruto that question for a reason, though. Anything bad that had happened to Naruto was bad enough for him to end up at home. It was important to him to find out how determined Naruto was. Naruto knew what could happen in battle, both when you win and when things don't go your way. Catherine realized too late that it wasn't as easy as she thought it was when she saw Naruto and Miller looking very serious at each other. Naruto had a fight. He fought well. He had been hurt badly during the 2-year fight. He might be able to go home now, right? That might have been it, though. What if Naruto wanted to keep doing what he was doing? Naruto told her, "No, not for good. I won't be there for even a month or 2 at most." This surprised Catherine, and he got out of bed and said, "I don't want to quit. There are some questions I need to answer. Questions about myself and other things as well. I can only answer these questions as long as I keep fighting." He then looked at Catherine and said, "I'm sorry, Kitty. It wasn't over yet. That man had to get better because those people who came after him were never going to let him go. It was impossible for him to leave because the farther he got from the battlefield, the more visible the bullet hole on his back became. In a way, he had to be part of the system. It was the only way he could figure out what had happened." Naruto put his hands on the younger girl's shoulders and said, "Besides, we've already talked about this. What else could I do?" She smiled back at him, but it was only half-hearted. He then let go of her. When he looked down, he saw that he was wearing a hospital gown. He took a few steps back and asked, "By the way, I'm all set to go, but I don't think there are any clothes for me. I'll go get you something to wear, okay?" Catherine asked as she put her face close to his and smiled at him. "I'll be back soon, okay?" To begin with, Naruto almost couldn't answer because he had to hold back from hitting Catherine. He was sure that Dr. Clark looked a lot like the woman he had seen when she was that close to him in the lab. He quickly calmed down by telling himself it was just Catherine and that he was fine. But the way he felt scared him. Why yeah, that would be great kitty. Thank you. That made Catherine decide to go get Naruto some clothes, leaving Naruto and Miller alone in the room. When she was done going through the door, she stuck her head back in and asked Naruto, "What did I say about calling me kitty?" Naruto ran his hand through his hair as he thought about the past. He didn't really want to remember what had happened, but he did. He still had the strength to tell his sweet little sister, "I'll stop calling you kitty when I drop dead." And I ain't dead yet. The blonde girl huffed, but she couldn't wipe the smile off her face as she walked away. Now Naruto was once again by himself with his thoughts because he had nothing to say. He could feel jabs of pain that weren't in any one place, but it was starting to bother him. He was so scared that he couldn't even make a fist. Naruto was able to hide his faster breathing from Catherine until she left the room. But Master Miller saw it and asked, "What's wrong, kid?" One moment, Naruto thought for sure that his hospital room looked a lot like the lab he had been in. He looked at Miller. Anything that had happened to him was coming back to him in flashes now that his mind had time to wander. Naruto finally grabbed his own hand to calm down and tried to pass it off as him cracking his knuckles. "Nothing's wrong. Master Miller is just a little stiff," he said. Miller went over to Naruto on the bed and sat down next to him. He put his hand on your shoulder. It was clear that he had been active because Naruto's muscles felt stronger than they did when he left with, "So how's life treating you?" Naruto tried to be funny by saying, "Other than getting shot, stabbed, blown to hell, and put in a coma thing. I'm doing great. Except for the whole getting captured and randomly getting bits and pieces of being tortured in a lab. But you don't need to know that." Naruto then added, "I don't know though. I'll probably be shipped right back to Rock again once the brass realizes that I'm good to go." "Not particularly," Miller said with a grin on his face. "A few months ago I got contacted by a man. He had a codename of Liquid Snake and apparently he's the field commander of Foxhound that took over after my friend Colonel Campbell retired. Anyway, he said he was going to try and reach out to you, because Campbell had been vouching for you using both of our credentials to anyone that was looking for someone to bolster their special forces." He thought back to the last conversation he had in Iraq before everything went crazy. It seems that Foxhound was there looking for him and wanting to talk to him. After that, he fought Olga and the Gerlukovich mercenaries. He won, but he had to deal with more important things than a job interview, like being captured. Anyway, a euro. Miller quickly got back on track. "Right after I heard that you were here and started making plans to run down here to see you, I got another call. This time from a man that referred to himself as Liquid's right hand and a member of the unit. Apparently they still want you to join. They heard about your work in the Philippines a euro, apparently that's what got their attention in the first place." He was still asked to join. They were still interested in him. This was something that might work out for him. If there was a group that wanted his blood, genes, or whatever the hell he was captured for, there was no better group of soldiers for him to be with than the best ones. He would love it if someone tried anything on him behind his back if they could join Foxhound. Not ever again, that would never happen to him again. That was the next thing he did. He had always wanted to be a part of Foxhound because Miller had told him they were the best. Naruto looked at Miller with the same pride in his eyes that he had when Miller first suggested that Naruto train with him. Miller saw that the boy's eyes were very intense, and he had to fight back a chill. At the very least, it was clear that he was a soldier now, just like the first time he heard Naruto call himself one. "So how do I get in touch with these guys?" Naruto asked with a small smile.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.